It all started with the smell of chlorine. I had just gotten home from a brutal week-long business trip. Flights delayed, meetings that should have been emails, and the soul-crushing weight of a deal that still wasn't closed. All I wanted was a cold beer and my wife Lisa's warm embrace. Instead, the first thing that hit me when I walked through the front door was that unmistakable pool smell, which was odd, considering we don't have a pool. I dropped my suitcase and loosened my tie, glancing around. Everything looked normal. The living room was tidy, a candle was burning on the coffee table, and soft jazz played from the speakers. A little too perfect, like a staged home in a real estate ad.
Lisa,
I called. Silence. Then, faintly, I heard something. A giggle. My stomach tightened. I wasn't the paranoid type, but something about that laugh felt off. It wasn't her usual laugh, the one I'd fallen in love with. It was higher, breathier, flirtier. I walked toward the sliding glass door leading to the balcony. The curtains were drawn, but I could see the movement of shadows against the fabric. I took a deep breath and pulled the curtain aside. And that's when I saw him. A young, tan, shirtless guy, maybe early 20s, standing on our balcony, holding a bottle of Lisa's favorite white wine. His swim trunks were damp, clinging to his toned frame. Lisa was laughing at something he said, twirling her hair like a damn schoolgirl. She wore one of my button-down shirts, oversized on her, and I didn't have to be a genius to know she wasn't wearing much underneath. I didn't explode, not yet. Instead, I took a step back, my heart hammering. I had no idea who this guy was, but something told me he wasn't here to fix the non-existent pool. I turned, forcing myself to move as calmly as possible. My hands were shaking, my breath coming too fast. I needed to think. Lisa had been acting different lately, more distant, taking longer showers, laughing at her phone screen like some high schooler texting her crush. And now, here she was on our balcony with some kid who looked like he belonged in a goddamn cologne ad. I needed confirmation. So instead of storming out there like some betrayed husband in a bad soap opera, I went upstairs. If they thought I wasn't home yet, I could catch them in the act. My hands clenched into fists as I reached our bedroom window, which overlooked the balcony. I peeked through the blinds just in time to see Lisa reach for the guy's hand. That was all I needed to see. I was about to barge out there when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, my mind still reeling, and read the text that would change everything. Your wife isn't just cheating. She's being played. Check the hidden camera in the pool house. My blood ran cold. What the hell was going on? I stood there, gripping my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. My mind was racing. Who the hell sent this text? And what camera in the pool house? We didn't have a damn pool. But a few houses down, Old Man Thompson had one, and most of the neighborhood used it. A community pool, in a sense. It was maintained by some young guy, a fresh-faced, tanned, walking cliché of a pool boy that the bored housewives all conveniently loved hiring when their husbands were out. A sick feeling spread through my chest. That guy. The same one standing on my balcony right now. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to think clearly. If someone went through the trouble of warning me, then this was bigger than just Lisa sneaking around behind my back. I needed to see that camera. But first, I needed to play this smart. I pocketed my phone and turned back toward the hallway. The last thing I wanted was for Lisa to realize I was home. I moved quietly, slipping into the guest bedroom, where I kept a second set of car keys. If I walked out the front door, they'd hear me. But if I left through the back, I could make it to the pool house without them noticing. It was risky, but I needed the truth. The evening air was warm and sticky as I crept toward the pool house. The place was locked, but that didn't stop me. I glanced around, making sure no one was watching, then grabbed a rock from the flower bed and smashed the tiny latch. It wasn't exactly subtle, but I didn't give a damn. Inside, the space was dark and smelled of chlorine and mildew. A couple of lounge chairs were stacked against the wall, and a broken pool net leaned in the corner. But what caught my attention immediately was a laptop sitting on a workbench. The screen was still on. Someone had been here recently. I moved closer, my pulse pounding. I didn't know what I expected, but it sure as hell wasn't a folder labeled Housewives. I clicked it. Inside were dozens of video files, each with a timestamp and an address. My stomach flipped as I scrolled through the list. Some of the addresses were familiar women from our neighborhood. Women who hosted book clubs, PTA meetings, and backyard barbecues. Women who, according to these videos, were cheating on their husbands. And Lisa? Her name was there too. I clicked on the most recent file. A grainy video loaded, and my worst fears were confirmed. Lisa, my wife, was sprawled out on a lounge chair right here in this pool house. Her hands tangled in the pool guy's hair as he kissed her neck. The timestamp? 2 days ago. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. I wanted to punch something, to scream, to break everything in sight. But then, my eyes caught something else in the video. As the pool guy pulled away, Lisa said something. The audio was low, but I turned up the volume. "Please, no one can know about this," she whispered, her voice shaky. The pool guy smirked, tilting her chin up. "Then you better keep paying, sweetheart." I froze. Paying? Lisa wasn't just cheating. She was being extorted. And judging by the amount of videos on this laptop, she wasn't the only one. I shut the laptop, my hands trembling. This kid, this low-life con artist, had set up cameras and recorded himself with multiple women, using the footage to blackmail them for money. And Lisa was on that list. I took a step back, trying to process everything. Had Lisa willingly kept this going? Or was she in too deep? How long had this been happening? How much money had she given him? I checked my phone again, rereading the text that led me here. Who sent it? Who else knew? And more importantly, what the hell was I going to do next? I stood there in the dimly lit pool house, my fists clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. My wife wasn't just cheating. She was being extorted. And not just her. Half the damn neighborhood was caught in this kid's web. But who was behind the text? I needed answers, and I needed them now. I grabbed the laptop and tucked it under my arm. If I was going to confront Lisa, I needed this evidence. But as I turned to leave, a voice stopped me in my tracks. "Hey, man. You lost." I spun around. There he was. The pool guy. He was standing in the doorway, arms crossed. A cocky smirk on his face like he had the whole damn world wrapped around his finger. Up close, he looked even younger than I expected, early 20s tops. Tan, fit, the kind of guy who probably got through life on his looks alone. I didn't answer. I just stared at him, gripping the laptop tighter. He glanced down at it, then back at me, his smirk widening. "You weren't supposed to see that." Something inside me snapped. I lunged at him, shoving him hard against the doorframe. His smirk disappeared as his back hit the wood with a dull thud. "You've got about 10 seconds to explain yourself before I break your damn jaw," I growled. He actually laughed. "Chill, man. I get it. You're pissed. But trust me, your wife's got bigger problems than you." I shoved him harder. "What the hell does that mean?" He sighed dramatically, like this was just another day for him. "Look, dude, this isn't personal. It's business. Your wife, along with a few others, thought they could have a little fun on the side and keep it quiet. I just capitalized on that." He grinned, tilting his head. "Basic supply and demand." My stomach churned. "So you record them, threaten to expose them, and they pay you off?" He shrugged. "Pretty much. And man, you'd be surprised how willing they are to keep me happy. Some of them actually like it. Lisa, for example." Punched him. Hard. His head snapped back against the doorframe, and he stumbled, clutching his jaw. I wasn't done. "You're gonna delete every single file," I snarled. "And you're gonna stay the hell away from my wife and every other woman in this neighborhood." "Got it." He wiped blood from his lip, then grinned. "Can't do that, big guy." I wanted to hit him again, but something about the way he said it stopped me cold. He wasn't scared. Why wasn't he scared? Then, before I could react, he pulled out his phone. With one tap, he flipped the screen toward me. A live video feed of Lisa. She was sitting in our bedroom, looking at her phone, completely unaware she was being watched. "I have backups, genius," he said, rubbing his jaw. "Even if you destroy that laptop, I can drop every single video online in seconds." Imagine the headlines. Respectable suburban moms caught cheating. Some of your neighbors might lose their marriages, their jobs, their kids. He grinned. Not to mention Lisa. My vision blurred with rage. What do you want? I forced out. He dusted himself off, like we were just two guys having a casual conversation. Money, obviously. Lisa's already been paying, but she's running out of cash. So maybe you step in. 50 grand should do it, for now. I stared at him, my heart hammering. Lisa had been giving him money. How much? How long? And how the hell did she get in this deep? He smirked. Or, if you'd rather not pay, I could always just... He waved his phone in the air. Let the truth out. I felt sick. This wasn't just about Lisa cheating anymore. This was blackmail. This was a game. And I had just stepped onto the board. But if this kid thought he had me cornered, he had no idea who he was messing with. I stood there, my chest heaving, staring down this smug little bastard as he held his phone like a detonator. One tap and my wife's dirty little secret, along with half the neighborhood's, would be all over the internet. The problem was, I couldn't just punch my way out of this. 50 grand, I repeated slowly, letting the number sink in. And then what? You walk away. The pool guy, no, I needed to stop calling him that. The snake smiled like we were making a business deal. Sure, call it an early retirement fund. I exhaled, forcing my expression to relax. I dealt with sharks in suits my entire career. This kid, he was just a street-level scam artist with good abs. He wasn't the first person who'd tried to hustle me, and he wouldn't be the last. I forced out a chuckle, stepping back.
All recht, Mann.
You got me. His smirk widened, cocky as ever. Smart guy. Saves you and Lisa a world of hurt. I nodded, pretending to think. Yeah, I see your angle. But there's just one problem. He raised an eyebrow. Yeah. I smiled. You're a dumbass. Before he could react, I snatched the phone out of his hand. Smash. I slammed it against the workbench so hard the screen shattered into a spiderweb of glass. The device bounced off the table, hitting the floor with a lifeless thud. His eyes went wide. Dude! I grabbed him by the shirt and shoved him against the wall. You think I'm just some clueless husband? I hissed. You think I'd actually give you 50 grand? For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Good. You have backups? Fine. I'll find them. But here's the thing, you've pissed off the wrong guy. You didn't just blackmail my wife. You blackmailed half this neighborhood. I leaned in. Which means you didn't just make an enemy out of me. You made enemies out of a lot of powerful, angry men. And when they find out, I let the weight of my words sink in. He gulped. I wasn't bluffing. These weren't just bored housewives. Some of these women were married to judges, business owners, even a retired cop. This kid had been playing with fire, and now he was about to get burned. I released him, letting him stumble forward. He rubbed his neck, glaring at me but clearly shaken. You really think you scared me? He sneered, but his voice wavered. I still have those videos, man. I grinned. I know, and that's why I'm not gonna break your jaw. Yet. I grabbed the shattered remains of his phone and shoved them into his hands. Here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna go home. You're gonna wipe every damn file you have. And if I ever hear your name again, I leaned in, lowering my voice. I will make your life a living hell. He hesitated, looking at me like he was debating whether to push his luck. Then, without another word, he turned and bolted out of the pool house. I let out a slow breath. That was step 1. Step 2?
Lisa.
I walked into the house like a ghost. My mind was locked in battle mode, calculating, ruthless, ready. Lisa was in the kitchen, wine glass in hand, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. Like she wasn't one bad decision away from blowing up our entire life. She didn't notice me until I was halfway across the room. Oh, she gasped, setting the glass down. Chris, you scared me. I didn't say anything. Her eyes flicked to my face, her smile faltering. Babe, what's wrong? I took a deep breath, staring at the woman I thought I knew. The woman who, up until 20 minutes ago, I was ready to forgive for cheating on me. But now I wasn't sure. Lisa, I said, my voice unnervingly calm. How much money have you given him? The color drained from her face. Boom. Got her. She knew exactly what I was talking about. Chris, don't lie to me. Her lips trembled. I could see her mind racing, looking for an escape, an excuse, a way to spin this. It wasn't like that. I let out a hollow laugh. Then tell me what it was like. Lisa. She swallowed hard, her fingers clutching the kitchen counter. He threatened me. He had pictures, videos. I didn't know what to do. How much? I cut her off. Tears welled in her eyes. 30,000, she whispered. My vision blurred. 30,000 dollars. I had to grip the counter to stop myself from putting my fist through a wall. Jesus Christ, Lisa. My voice shook. That's our savings. I stopped, running a hand down my face. This wasn't just cheating. This was betrayal on every level. I didn't want to, Chris. I swear. But did you ever plan on telling me? She bit her lip, eyes darting away. That hesitation told me everything I needed to know. I exhaled slowly, pushing away the raw pain clawing at my chest. I had one last question. The one I was afraid to ask. Are you still seeing him? Lisa flinched. And right then I knew. Silence. That was all Lisa gave me. She stood there, her arms wrapped around herself, biting her lip like a guilty teenager caught sneaking out. She didn't deny it. I felt something inside me snap. 30 grand. A secret affair. And she was still seeing him. I clenched my jaw so hard it ached. This wasn't just some mistake. This wasn't just a weak moment. This was a full-blown betrayal. I took a slow step toward her.
Lisa.
Look at me. She hesitated, then lifted her eyes to mine. I searched her face, looking for something. Anything. That might make this easier to swallow. Regret. Guilt. Maybe even love. But what I saw instead. Fear. And not the kind of fear you feel when you've been caught. No, this was deeper. He's still threatening you, isn't he? I asked. She nodded, a single tear sliding down her cheek. Chris, I don't know how to get out of this. I took a deep breath. My fists were still clenched at my sides, my pulse thundering in my ears. But now my anger had a target. And it wasn't just Lisa. That kid, that smug little extortionist, thought he could keep his grip on my wife, on my family. He had no idea who he was messing with. I needed more information. Lisa was still crying, shaking, looking like she was 2 seconds from collapsing. But I wasn't about to let her play the victim. Not yet. Tell me everything, I demanded. How did this start? How did he get his hooks in you? She wiped her face, her hands trembling. It was a few months ago. I was at the pool. He was just nice to me, you know? Flirty. I didn't think anything of it at first. But then you were gone on that business trip, and I was feeling. I held up a hand. Spare me the excuses. She nodded quickly, swallowing. Okay. She sucked in a shaky breath. I slept with him. There it was. The confession. Even though I had already known, hearing it still felt like a knife to the gut. I forced myself to stay still. And the blackmail? Lisa squeezed her eyes shut. A few days later, he texted me. Said he had pictures. Video.
He panicked.
He said if I didn't pay him, he'd send them to you. To everyone. My hands curled into fists. Of course he did. So you paid him. She nodded, eyes full of shame. At first, it was just a few thousand. I thought maybe that would be enough. But he kept coming back, asking for more. I already knew the answer to my next question, but I had to ask anyway. And in exchange for not exposing you, you kept sleeping with him? Lisa's face crumpled. Chris, please. I let out a harsh laugh. Unbelievable. She wasn't just paying him. She was his damn plaything. And now she wanted me to fix it. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice level. He asked for 50 grand. Lisa's head snapped up. What? I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. He ran out of money from you, so now he's coming after me. Her face drained of color. Chris, if you don't. I'm not giving him a damn cent. Lisa blinked. But nothing. I leaned in close. You want out of this? Then we do it my way. Her breath hitched. What are you going to do? I didn't answer, because truthfully, I wasn't sure yet. But one thing was clear. That kid? He was done. He thought he could play with people's lives, trap them in his little web, take their money, and keep them scared. He had no idea what kind of storm was about to hit him. I turned back to Lisa. There was one thing still nagging at me, one last thing that didn't make sense. Who sent me the text? Lisa's brow furrowed. What? I pulled out my phone and showed her the message, the one that had led me to the pool house. She stared at it, her expression shifting from confusion to shock. Chris, I didn't send this. I know. Which meant someone else did. Someone who knew what was happening. Someone who wanted me to find out. And if there was one thing I had learned from this mess, it was this. Nobody does something for nothing. Lisa was still staring at my phone, her face pale, her hands shaking. Chris, I swear, I don't know who sent that. I wasn't sure if I believed her, but that wasn't my biggest problem right now. Someone else knew about this mess. Someone who wanted me to find out. And that meant I wasn't just dealing with Lisa's boy toy-turned-blackmailer anymore. There was a third player in this game. I took my phone back and read the message again. Your wife isn't just cheating. She's being played. Check the hidden camera in the pool house. That was too specific. Whoever sent it knew about the blackmail. And that meant they'd been watching. I clenched my jaw, my mind spinning. Was this someone who wanted revenge? A jealous spouse? Another victim? Lisa finally found her voice. Chris, what do we do? I almost laughed. As if we were still on the same team. I'm going to find out who sent this, I said, my voice like steel. And I'm going to handle that kid once and for all. Lisa flinched, but she didn't argue. Maybe she finally realized just how deep in hell she had dragged us both. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up, combing through my phone records, texts, emails, anything that might give me a clue. But whoever sent that message had done a damn good job covering their tracks. Came from a burner number. No name, no follow-up, which meant I had one option left. Go straight to the source. At dawn, I grabbed my car keys and left. Lisa didn't ask where I was going. She already knew. The pool boy. I finally learned his real name was Ryan. Lived in a crappy little apartment on the edge of town. I pulled into the lot, parked, and walked straight to his door. I didn't knock. I pounded. A few seconds later, the door swung open, and there he was. Smug, shirtless, smelling like cheap cologne and even cheaper liquor. His cocky grin faltered when he saw the look on my face. Dude, are you serious? You can't just show up. I shoved him back inside. Hard. Slam. The door shut behind me. Ryan stumbled, knocking over a chair. What the hell, man? I didn't say a word. Just pulled out my phone and showed him the text. His face changed. Not cocky anymore. Not confident. Nervous. Where did you get that? His voice was tight. I stepped closer. You tell me. He licked his lips, eyes darting around the room. He wasn't used to being on this side of the threat. I didn't send that, dude. I didn't blink. Then who did? He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. For the first time, he looked genuinely uncomfortable. Look, I don't know, but I might have an idea. Bingo. Talk. Ryan hesitated, then sighed. There's someone else. Someone who found out what I was doing. And they didn't like it. Who? I demanded. He shook his head. I don't know exactly, but a couple weeks ago, I started getting messages. My blood ran cold. What kind of messages? Ryan swallowed hard. Threats. Warnings. Stuff like, you're playing with fire. And then a few days ago, they sent me a picture of my car, parked right outside my apartment. No note. No explanation. For the first time since I met him, Ryan actually looked scared. I think someone's watching us both, dude. I walked out of that apartment with more questions than answers. Ryan wasn't lying. He was a piece of trash, but he wasn't smart enough to fake that level of fear, which meant there was someone else. Someone who knew about Lisa's affair, the blackmail, and now me. And they weren't just watching. They were pulling the strings. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, my mind racing. Who the hell was really in control of this mess? And more importantly, what did they want? I sat in my car outside Ryan's apartment, staring at my phone, reading the message over and over. Your wife isn't just cheating. She's being played. Check the hidden camera in the pool house. Ryan was scared. Really scared. And that meant this wasn't just about me, Lisa, or even his pathetic little blackmail scheme anymore. Someone bigger was moving the pieces. And now I needed to figure out who. If there was one thing I'd learned from working in business, it was that money never disappears. Lisa had given Ryan 30 grand. Money that had come straight from our joint savings account. But when I checked the account that morning, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. The withdrawals weren't straight to cash. They had been transferred first to another account. I clicked on the details, and there it was. A PayPal account under a name I didn't recognize. M. Caldwell. I didn't know anyone by that name. Lisa sure as hell had never mentioned them. But someone named M. Caldwell had been funneling our money before Ryan even touched it. Ryan wasn't the mastermind. He was a middleman. The real question was, who was running the show? I stormed back into the house. Lisa was sitting on the couch, still looking like a kicked puppy. When she saw my face, she knew something was wrong. Chris. I held up my phone. Who the hell is M. Caldwell? Her expression flickered, not just confusion. Fear. She knew. I took a slow step toward her.
Lisa.
Don't lie to me. Not now. She swallowed, then whispered, Maggie Caldwell. My stomach dropped. That name, I did know it. Maggie Caldwell. Lisa's best friend. Lisa was already shaking her head. Chris, I swear. I didn't know she was involved. Bullshit. I slammed my phone on the table. You paid Ryan through Maggie's account. That doesn't just happen. Tears welled in Lisa's eyes, but I was done with sympathy. Was this even about blackmail? Or was it always a setup? Lisa broke down. I didn't know, she sobbed. I thought she was just helping me transfer the money discreetly. She told me to send it to her first so you wouldn't notice. My blood turned ice cold.
Lisa.
My voice was eerily calm. Why would she do that? Why would Maggie, your so-called best friend, want to keep this secret so badly? Lisa looked away, and that's when I knew. This wasn't about blackmail. This wasn't about Ryan. This was bigger. Lisa wasn't the only one cheating. Maggie was in on it. I stepped back, suddenly putting the pieces together. Maggie was the one who introduced Lisa to Ryan. Maggie was the one who always covered for Lisa when I asked where she was. And Maggie was the one controlling the damn money. She wasn't just helping Lisa. She was helping all of them. The women, the payments, the cover-ups. Ryan wasn't the king of this operation. Maggie was. I grabbed my phone and pulled up Maggie's number. Lisa's eyes went wide. Chris, don't. Too late. I hit dial. The phone rang once, twice. Then she picked up. Hey, Chris. Her voice was completely calm, like she knew this was coming. I clenched my jaw. We need to talk. Now. A small chuckle. Oh, honey. I was wondering when you'd figure it out. My pulse spiked. She knew. She had always known. Maggie sighed. Tell you what. Meet me at my house in an hour. Alone. Then she hung up. Lisa was still crying, begging me not to go. But I was already walking to the door, because I knew one thing for sure. Maggie Caldwell was about to tell me the real truth. Maggie's house was just a few streets over, but the drive felt like a lifetime. I gripped the steering wheel, my mind racing. Lisa's affair had been just the tip of the iceberg. Ryan had been nothing more than a pawn. And Maggie, she was the one pulling all the strings. I parked outside her house, cutting the engine. The lights inside were on, a soft golden glow spilling through the curtains. She was waiting for me. I knocked once. The door swung open almost instantly. Maggie stood there, smiling, like she had all the power in the world. "Come in, Chris." I stepped inside, my jaw tight. Her place was perfectly staged. Wine on the coffee table, soft music playing. Like she was hosting a damn dinner party instead of facing the husband whose life she had just detonated. "You knew," I said coldly. "From the start." Maggie chuckled. "Of course I did." I clenched my fists. "Why?" She took a slow sip of wine. "Because, Chris, I don't like to lose." I sat down, barely holding back the rage boiling in my chest. "Explain." Maggie sighed, like she was bored of my questions already. "You think this was about Lisa? About Ryan?" She laughed. "Chris, this was bigger than just one little affair." She leaned forward, her voice silky. "Men like you? You think you're untouchable. Perfect marriages. Perfect lives. But the truth is, you're all so easy to play." I stared at her, my stomach twisting. "How long have you been doing this?" Maggie swirled her wine glass. "A while. See, Chris, bored wives make the best customers. They want excitement, the thrill. And most of them," she smirked, "they're willing to pay for it." Realization hit me like a freight train. This wasn't just about Lisa. Maggie had built a business out of this. She set up the affairs, arranged the meetups, connected the women to Ryan, and maybe others just like him. Then, when things got messy, she helped them cover it up for a price. Lisa's money didn't just go to Ryan. It went through Maggie first. I shook my head in disbelief. "You were extorting them." Maggie grinned. "Oh, don't act so shocked, Chris. Your wife was one of my best clients." I stood up, every muscle in my body coiled with anger. "You're going to give me everything you have." Maggie sighed, setting her glass down. "And why would I do that?" I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Because if you don't, I'll make sure every husband in this neighborhood knows exactly what you've been doing." For the first time, her smirk faltered. I pressed forward. "You think those men won't come after you? You think the husbands of all those bored wives won't tear your little empire apart?" Maggie's eyes narrowed. For the first time, I had her cornered. She exhaled through her nose. Then, slowly, she picked up her phone. "Fine." She tapped the screen, then slid the phone across the table. "Everything's in that folder. Videos, bank transfers, the whole operation." I picked up the phone and checked the files. It was all there. Names, dates, transactions, the entire ugly truth. I looked back up at her. "Game over." Maggie exhaled and poured herself another glass of wine. "Oh, Chris." She gave me one last smirk. "You think this is over? You think exposing me will fix your marriage?" She leaned back in her chair, eyes gleaming. "Lisa still cheated, and you'll never forget it." I stared at her for a long moment. Then, without another word, I turned and walked out. The fallout was immediate. I sent copies of everything to every husband involved. The neighborhood exploded. Lisa begged, pleaded, promised she had been manipulated. I didn't care. I filed for divorce the next day. Ryan, he skipped town, probably scared one of the husbands would do worse than I did. And Maggie, she vanished. One day her house was empty, her bank accounts wiped. She had played the game perfectly, right up until she lost. Looking back, I don't regret exposing them. But Maggie was right about one thing. Lisa's betrayal? I'll never forget it. And I'll never let anyone play me like that again.